Europe believed it had prevailed. In what was hailed as the most aggressive economic sanction in modern history, the European Union froze hundreds of billions in Russian assets, including central bank reserves, oligarch properties, and corporate holdings. It was intended to cripple Russia, pressure for regime change, and signal that aggression carries severe costs. Celebrations ensued in Brussels. Politicians vied for acclaim. Media lauded European resolve and solidarity. Then Russia's legal countermeasures escalated, with lawsuits filed in domestic courts and threats of broader action. Within days, analysts described it as a sophisticated legal challenge. Within weeks, European officials expressed growing concern. Within months, Europe's plans to leverage the frozen assets, a roughly a negation to $10 billion held in the EU, faced mounting complications. Russia's response was not military or economic retaliation in kind. It was calculated legal pressure exploiting debates over international law that few had anticipated fully. And it has created significant hurdles. This is the account of how Russia challenged Europe's leverage over frozen assets through persistent legal maneuvers. European experts now caution governments on the risks, and what this portends for economic sanctions overall. Begin with what Europe actually did. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Western nations froze about $300 billion in Russian central bank reserves. The EU portion was the largest, around a negation to $10 to $60 billion depending on estimates, mostly held at Belgium-based Euroclear. For years, these assets remained frozen. Russia demanded access. Europe refused. In 2024, leaders advanced plans to use profits from the assets, then explored loans backed by them. A G7 agreement provided a $50 billion loan to Ukraine repaid via interest earnings. By late 2025, the EU moved to freeze the principal indefinitely, removing 6-month renewal requirements, to facilitate further aid like reparations loans. The legal basis was contentious. Framing it as countermeasures or tied to reparations drew warnings from advisers about breaches of sovereign immunity and international norms. Political momentum prevailed over caution. The measures advanced. Russia's response appeared restrained at first. Protests, vows of reciprocity, standard diplomacy. European leaders took comfort. If complaints were the extent, the policy succeeded. This underestimated Russia's approach. For years, teams prepared contingencies, hiring international experts to probe vulnerabilities in sanctions law, precedents, and frameworks. They highlighted key issues European policymakers grappled with. The mechanism relied on immobilizing state property under sanctions. But international law distinguishes sovereign immunity for central bank reserves as monetary instruments, protected under treaties and custom. Europe's initial freeze avoided full seizure partly for this reason. Shifting to profit-used or loans tested boundaries, prompting debates. Russia's actions focused on these points. Lawsuits targeted Euroclear in Moscow courts, seeking billions in damages. Claims argued unlawful immobilization violated immunity. Further, profit diversion lacked valid reparations basis. No treaty, tribunal judgment, or agreement existed. Unilateral actions risked invalidity. Additionally, selective application of property rights under EU law raised consistency issues. A strategic element, Russia argued such moves threatened global financial stability. Seizing or leveraging sovereign reserves politically could drive diversification from Western systems, eroding trust. Russia framed itself as upholding financial order against expediency. Evidence of internal EU divisions emerged in discussions, amplifying doubts. Leaks or implications of access to deliberations fueled uncertainty in Brussels. If doubts were known, what else might surface? The strategy spanned jurisdictions, domestic Russian courts, with threats of international forums, arbitration, and enforcement in friendly states. This posed challenges for Europe, defending across venues, high costs, risks of adverse rulings undermining positions. Asymmetry favored delay. Russia needed uncertainty. Europe needed uniform validation. Early developments included lawsuits against Euroclear, indefinite freeze decisions amid backlash, and warnings of prolonged litigation decades potentially. No widespread injunctions halted transfers, but legal clouds complicated plans. Profits funded aid. But principal use faced resistance from members like Belgium over liabilities. Investment treaty angles were raised, though reserve status as investments remained debated. Past positions added complexity. Financial reactions, concerns over precedent led to cautious diversification, rising yields, euro pressure in some analyses. ECB navigated carefully. Insurers and banks assessed exposures, adjusting premiums or advice. Politically, proponents faced criticism, skeptics gained voice. Unity strained under costs and risks. Russia's aim appeared attrition, prolonged uncertainty, keep assets immobilized without full benefit to Europe, costs accumulate, legal fees, instability, divisions. Precedent concerns grew. Success in affirming immunity could blunt future reserve freezes, reducing sanction deterrence. Nations note strategies for resistance. Experts advise caution on escalation, weighing indefinite holds against benefits amid evolving geopolitics. Settlement discussions surface privately. Phased uses, oversight, or ties to commitments. Russia signals flexibility for recognition of propriety. Optics evolve. Europe defends positions amid doubts. Russia portrays reasonableness. The human factor. Defending lawyers navigate prior scholarship on immunity. Conviction varies. Russia's arguments align with established views in some circles. Timelines suit delay. Cases span years. Assets remain unavailable. Russia adapted economically. Urgency waned. Deeper worry. Adverse rulings could question Europe's commitment to rules-based order, eroding authority. Russia's approach leverages Europe's strengths: independent courts, law adherence against political choices, outcome unclear, full access unlikely soon, but sustained pressure may yield concessions, framing the policy as costly. Symbolism weighs heavy. Europe sought consequences for regression. Russia highlights limits challengeable legally. Trajectories suggest ongoing contention. Implications for sanctions, once seen as near-permanent, now contestable. Deterrence recalculated. For Europe, complex entanglement. Public grasps little. Experts see challenges. Costs rise. Precedents shift. Outcomes uncertain. Europe immobilized billions in unity and resolve. Russia counters through methodical legal pressure. Modern competition unfolds in courts and strategies. Sophistication evident. Ramifications enduring. Most unaware of depths. Europe's immobilization, legally contested, faces reversal not through force, but sustained challenge. Russia exploits dilemmas, uphold principles or objectives. Europe balances both. Russia ensures awareness,